Hi, welcome back to Cubs and Culture for January 10th, 2018, continuing our basic explanation of pitching. Okay, so there's two, as far as deception is concerned, you're either trying to get the person to take a strike and not swing, or you're trying to get them to swing over or where the ball isn't. So if you're trying to get them to take a strike because they think it's a ball, obviously how you throw it. So you'll end up, if again, to do a really extreme example, if you're throwing a curveball, you make it seem like it's going to drop really far down below the strike zone. Okay, that it just looks bad. It's just going to drop below the strike zone. But then it ends up hitting in the middle. Or, more common because it's easier to do, is if you aim for the person's head, it looks like the ball is going to go at the person's shoulder or two inside. At the last second with a cutter or a cutter, it'll cut back into the strike zone. Hendricks does this all the time, where he makes a strike look like a ball when it leaves his hand. Okay, so in general, but the other sort of way is you make a pitch look really good, and then at the last second it slides out or jumps away, so the person ends up swinging over it. Okay, in general, so you make a strike look like a ball actually looks like a strike. Okay, and because it's actually going to be a ball, the person swings over it or past it or whatever. Darvish, as a pitcher, sliders are mostly intended to get the person to whiff on them, to swing over them. They're not really intended for him to, for the batter to think it's going to be a ball and end up as a strike. Let me pause for a second. Which means if a person knows that Darvish is going to throw a slider, they're generally just going to lay off of him because they're going to slide out of the strike zone and it will probably be a ball. Okay. Now, there's this thing, it happens this happens to a lot of pitchers, at some point in the career, is they develop a psychological tell, like a tell in poker, where they do something ever so slightly different depending on what pitch they're throwing. This is called tipping pitches. In the World Series, Darvish, fortunately, wasn't doing it during his delivery. What was happening was, if he threw a fastball, he did not change he would grip, when he gripped the ball and put it into his glove in front of the batter, he would have it in his fastball grip. If he was going to throw a slider, he would move the grip in the glove. So he was no movement seen on the outside of the glove if it was a fastball, movement seen if it was going to be a slider. It's frankly embarrassing that only the Astros, as opposed to like Robertson, the Dodgers pitching coach, caught this, because it was such obviously bad tipping of pitches. And so because of that, the Astros were basically were able to eliminate Darvish's deceptive pitch, which was his slider. And so they were just basically sitting on his fastball because they knew what was coming. So they knew where to look if it was a slider, and they also knew if it was a fastball. So it's such an advantage to the batter if they know, because even power pitchers sort of depend on a little bit of deception. Okay, so this is why Darvish had debatably the worst World Series ever, because the Astros knew what he was throwing. Let me pause there for a second again. Sorry for technical. So because of that was the principal reason why it was bad. Now, it was also true, for whatever reason, in his two starts. If you don't remember, he put up a 21.6 ERA over his two starts in the World Series, which is god-awful. You have to go back 50 years before you can even begin to find a comparative performance for a starting pitcher. Anyway, The other sort of thing is the way in which the sliders are thrown. For them to not have, there's a problem with. So if a slider doesn't slide the way, like if the slider, instead of going like this and it really slides out, it just sort of, or more often like this. If you don't throw it quite right, what will happen? It's called the cement mixer slider. It's slower and it sort of like that. So it ends up, for a lot of hitters, that's a place where they can hit home runs. So it backs up or it doesn't quite slide correctly. That was also happening to Darvish for whatever reason. And you could see this because if it's a good slider, when you you can't, unless you're a Major League Baseball player, you can't really see this without the aid of the camera. But if it's a good slider, it will be a dot, just a dot on the seams. If it's a bad slider, it will look like a big looping circle. Darvish's things were circles. Okay, now I'm bringing this up because I actually would be really excited if Darvish became a Cub because he's a really good pitcher. I'm just trying to. If you didn't know much about pitching and you saw his numbers, you're like, what the fuck happened? Why would you be excited? Well, that's why. Now, I also want to very quickly talk about something about Baez, just because he's my favorite player and I'm talking about location and everything. Okay, if you want to get Baez to swing, throw a breaking ball or an off-speed pitch here. Okay? Or a fastball here. For whatever reason, he doesn't recognize the breaking balls here, and he doesn't recognize fastballs here. So he often will swing when he shouldn't. And this is one of the reasons why I hope Chili Davis gets him to say, if you think it's down and away at all, don't swing on 2 strikes. Because he would be, look, he's my favorite player. I think people overstate the hole in this swing when it comes to higher than desirable strikeout totals. But if Chili Davis could get Baez just to eliminate one of those 2 weak spots, that would be great. And the thing is, he has shown in the past, especially for the one down and away, this one, in the past, the ability to, when it was absolutely critical for him to lay off of it. So I'm specifically thinking about this game in late, maybe it was mid-August. It was against the Reds. And the Cubs were down by a run with 1 out and the pitcher coming up and someone was on third or something like that. It was absolutely critical for Baez to either get a hit or get a walk. And they actually went to a fresh pitcher, and Baez very quickly got the 2 strikes because he does all the time. And this pitcher actually basically 3 times in a row, with a breaking ball pitch, went here, and 2 of the 3 times, he missed the strike zone. So Baez saw it, and then, I'm sorry, he did that 2 times. Okay, so it became 2. It became 2-2, and then the guy came up here with a fastball, and Baez again recognized it. And then here he brought it in more, so it ended up being about here, and then Baez kept spoiling that like 2 or 3 times. Well, eventually, the guy was forced to make a really competitive pitch, a power pitch, not quite down the middle, but kind of down the middle, and Baez gets a hit. And it was the most amazing at bat he's had all since for the three-ish years he's been in the league, and it was sort of hysterical because especially on this one, you could tell that every fucking fiber of his being was telling him to swing, and he was it was almost like, and this is very, very weird, but philosopher, it's almost like how in Kantianism, to be truly autonomous, you must deny sort of your natural desires. In that you only drink water because you can't drink water because you want to drink water, and if you want to follow Kantian ethics, you only can drink water because it's what you need to survive. So you could tell that Baez's hypothetical imperative was telling him to swing, but his categorical imperative, like his upper level, him being more autonomous, was it was totally like a Kantian conflict between his nominal self and sort of his autonomous self about whether or not he should swing. It was adorable. Anyway, to finish the story, he gets the hit, brings in the person, ties up. The Reds decide to go to another pitcher, and eventually, because of that, there was this huge rally, and the Cubs ended up putting up 7. So by the time he came back up again to bat, 2 innings later, or maybe even an inning later, he struck out on 3 pitches, and I swear to God, Joe Madden told him, go ahead and swing. It doesn't matter at this point. As like an award for him, because it was such an amazing professional at bat. Okay, I'm getting kind of ranty now. I might be back later tonight to talk about a movie. I'm not sure. If not, Cubs and Culture out.